Jankum Pog has a tickle in his throat. Dal's skin is itchy, and wood leech's secretions reduce the angiodemic immune response. Of course, everybody knows that. Hello, and welcome to The Seventh Rule with Cirroc, Lofton, and Bonnie Gordon.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
My name is Ryan T. Husk. Today we're doing a review of Prodigy, episode 13 of season 1, All the World's a Stage, directed by Andrew Schmidt, written by Aaron J. WALTKE, and what a coincidence, very special guest today, Mr. Aaron WALTKE. How are you?
Woo!
Hello.
Applause button.
Yes. I'm living logs and proper. I'm doing quite well.
Yes.
Oh my God.
That was my favorite.
It's so good.
Okay.
This episode was just a pleasant surprise. I didn't expect anything that I saw in this episode. So it was like one of those things where it just came out of nowhere and hit me in the face. And this is one of my favorite adventures, if not my favorite adventure that this crew has taken thus far. And I think it's just so well written. You're so good at writing these episodes that are just poignant and just creative. Where did the inspiration for this episode come from?
Oh gosh,
The original series, season 2, episode 13. That's just a guess. Sorry.
Yes, it's just an obsession of mine.
Yes,
that's a TOS pun for you people.
which we'll get into.
Well, first of all, thank you for the kind words, everybody. That means a lot. I mean, the inspiration. I tend to write stories. I can't really help it. I tend to write stories that are like layer cakes, where they are kind of doing 5 different themes at once, and where they start to align, and that Venn diagram overlaps is where I have the most fun. So this particular episode had like a lot of different ideas and a lot of themes sort of interweaving. But I think at its heart, you can kind of see in Dal's story, it is about belief, and in particular belief in institutions, which I would argue is as important today as ever. We are filming on election day, so it kind of makes sense. But I think a big part of it was this sort of, as a lifelong Star Trek fan, I often kind of saw in Star Trek this sort of aspirational quality, but there was also an element of like, for lack of a better term, maybe imposter syndrome, where there was always another fan of Star Trek that knew a little bit more than you, and there was always somebody out there that would maybe argue, well, this is Star Trek because it's my favorite Star Trek, but this Star Trek isn't Star Trek because
Aaron is starting to prove them wrong, because you seem like you're the biggest Star Trek fan of them all.
Aaron's the Wikipedia of Trek for me. If I ever have a question, I'm like, Aaron, you'll know the answer. But no, jumping off of that, try being a girl and being a Trek, like, or anywhere in the nerd world. Like the gatekeeping sometimes can be pretty brutal. Like when I tell people I'm a Trekkie, they're like, "Oh, prove it." On episode 4 of season 3, I'm like, whoa.
But I think that's the case with any institution and any particular community. There's always going to be this definition of, by nature, who's in and who's out. And that always kind of fascinated me and I think it fascinated Gene Roddenberry too. He wrote so many episodes where like they arrive on a planet and somehow they got a copy of the Constitution or something, and they were interpreting it in a wildly different way. And that idea of like, how do you live up to the idealized version of something that you believe in versus in practice? And I think Starfleet very much kind of embodies that idea, where it has changed dramatically over the seasons and over the years, but I think at its core there is still that sort of universal truth of a desire to explore, venture out and see that next horizon, and and help those in need. And I think as long as you stay true to that, I think is maybe the thesis of my story here, is like, you can accomplish great things, and you should never underestimate the underdogs.
I'm starting to get a little concerned, though, Aaron, because upon viewing this episode, in the middle of it, I started thinking, Aaron, you're really kind of backing yourself into a corner now, where every time people know that you've written an episode, they're going to expect really, really big things. Because you remember the episode at the beginning of the year in
Kobayashi.
Which was episode, I think maybe 6. was like iconic and memorable for decades to come, certainly. And then this next one is kind of a spin-off of an original series episode, like you mentioned, Obsession, with this Garavik character. But beyond that, it felt like a straight up love letter to the original series. And I'm starting to think you're really building up some really high expectations for yourself. How are you going to keep meeting those in the future?
I think the key is just keep swinging for the fences, because in my mind, whenever I think of Star Trek, I think of them just taking really bold swings. And, sometimes it pays off, sometimes it doesn't, but it's the idea behind it that they're trying for, but always sticks with me. And so that was always my attitude to writing Star Trek was, how far can we take it? How far down the rabbit hole of this idea can we really go until we find ourselves coming out the other end and having a new appreciation of whatever we were talking about in the first place?
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, Bonnie, I didn't mean to cut you off. I thought you were good.
I literally just did so you're good.
No, I'm watching this episode and I'm thinking to myself, Aaron, that this is actually the biggest homage to the fan base that I think I've seen on Star Trek. As I was watching it, I felt like it was saying to those of us that go to conventions and cosplay and love the franchise, I felt like it was saying to us that you guys are Starfleet too. You guys are just as much part of it as those of us that are, in Starfleet, or at least, in this imaginary world. So I felt the inclusiveness of that. And was that something that you were setting out to achieve, or that just a result of the storyline?
No, that was 100% something that I was thinking about a lot, especially kind of ruminating on the fact that Prodigy itself would ostensibly be bringing in new and young audiences who maybe might not know as much as like we do on this call. And, so much of it was sort of like that idea of like, Starfleet isn't going to come to pass on its own. It starts here and now in the present. And it starts with people that are willing to, strive to be better and to be, to create a better future for themselves with whatever they have. And I think that very much is, I think the Star Trek fandom is an aspirational one at its core. And that's what I think I was kind of ruminating on when I was kind of trying to deconstruct, what does make somebody Starfleet at their core.
Yeah. I felt like the lines that really jumped out at me were when you wrote, you don't need a real ship to believe in what it stands for. Just that whole idea. I was like, wow, that's beautiful. And then Jankum-Pog had the best line of them all, in my opinion, several of them, but one of them was, can you believe these dum-dums playing dress up pretending to be the Federation?
Yeah, he basically walked into a Star Trek convention.
Yeah, but then the irony set in, like, well, they're dressed up fake,
exactly, faking
it as like they're part of the Federation. So I thought that was just so clever, but also inclusive for the people those of us that go to play, watch plays. The whole plays idea, by the way, what an original thought. And I mean, watching the Star Trek play, I mean,
yeah, there was a little bit of inspiration there, even in Star Trek. In old school TOS, there were a number of episodes like, I think Who Mourns for Adonis and stuff, where there was sort of like a Greek kind of performative quality. And then in Voyager, I believe there's an episode called Muse, where the stories of Star Trek become these sort of ancient Greek myths. And
not to be confused with The Muse that Cirroc starred in on a Deep Space Nine episode with, what was her name, Cirroc?
Oh, I love that episode.
Oh, Beautiful Eyes from the movie.
Sorry, we'll remember it.
They live. Yeah, we'll talk about it later. But no,
put it in the chat.
Yeah. What I love about this episode the most is that you kept the stakes so high with, the plot, with everything happening around and the different plot points of, not only Murph being sick, but this planet, basically it's dripping plasma, making everyone sick, little things like that. You kept the stakes so high, but you were able to find so much humor in it as well. Like this episode especially had so much fun little parody bits of Star Trek. Like, I mean, just from the very beginning of them messing up the hands, and
yes.
like it made me laugh so hard. Little things that they said when they're reenacting the play and like going through everything, and it's just also shows how through the years and things, how stories can get exaggerated and how different
that
facts
game of
can
telephone.
get obscured. Exactly, a game of telephone where things, oh, he said, she said, and then it just turns it turns into mud. But I just thought you did it in such a fun way that kids watching who might not know a lot about Star Trek, might not get it, but the people watching who really know Star Trek, and it was just such a fun little moments to really giggle about, but at the same time the stakes are so high, it gives you all the emotions all at once.
I think that idea of the sort of the game of telephone and that sort of oral storytelling where history becomes legend, I remember writing it, I was reminded a little bit of like when we meet Zephram Cochrane, in First Contact, where they're like, don't try to be a great man, just be a man and let history decide the rest. And then they're like, and he's like, what jerk said that? And he was like, you did. And, I think that was something I'm also always fascinated with. It's like society, evolves and grows with the times. And, I think so much of what we need to remember when we're talking about our shared humanity is like people might have different names for things or different context clues or points of view, but ultimately I think we all are good and trying to make things better for our fellow person out there. And I think that's really what Starfleet is about, is finding that common understanding, even when you have episodes like Darmok where it seems like Picard is lost on a planet with somebody he could have nothing in common with, and then in the end they become the greatest of friends. And now the Temerians are part of Starfleet. So I love those stories.
Kayshawn.
Yes.
And Cirroc, the actress's name was Meg Foster. That's what it was. But since we were nominating our favorite lines of the episode, I have got to tell you that my favorite line, maybe in the history of all of Star Trek forever now, as of right now, is when Sulu says, my.
My.
I'm like, did I just hear him say my? Now, Bonnie, clearly the best line of this podcast, though, is when you said it was like walking into a Star Trek convention. Please, that needs to be repeated. That's hilarious. But
it
Aaron,
was, though. In the best way possible. Like,
Yeah, I mean, I've been going to Star Trek conventions of all types for as long as I could remember, and I think there is a certain sort of a threshold you have to cross and just embrace it, and you're gonna sometimes walk in and there's gonna be people teaching Kirk Fu, and you just have to roll with it.
I just had the thought of now people can cosplay as these aliens. Like that's what I can't wait to see.
Starflight.
The green uniform with the
zombie with the zombie
threading.
stitches.
Yeah, the threading all throughout. Oh my gosh. I can't wait. I need to have this made. Who do I commission for this?
Yeah, absolutely. And, and I, just to finish my thought, I love that as unusual as it might appear to first timers, there is such a sense of community and an openness and like deep found respect and joy that could be found if you're willing to kind of just like give yourself over to the general strange and unique and wonderful that is Star Trek. Because it really is something that I can't think of many comparisons, but if you are willing to just kind of meet them halfway, the Star Trek fandom will more than bring you into the fold.
Absolutely.
I want to say for those out there that when I met you, Aaron, and over the time that we've known each other, I believe you to be very genuine, incredibly knowledgeable, and immensely gifted and talented. And this episode, for me, when I was watching it, I was thinking, this is an Emmy nomination waiting to be happening somewhere because it's that good. And I was just watching it thinking, how many points you crossed as far as giving lessons for kids. One of them was when Jacob decided that he was going to get on the ship, and he said, I'm not an engineer if I can't fix this thing. And he jumps on the ship. And I thought, that's a great lesson right there. Small moment, but great lesson. Gwen
especially
also,
since he was so scared throughout the entire episode.
Yeah.
Didn't want to do anything. And then the moment he was like, wait, I'm the only one that can do this, he immediately takes action, which I love.
And then Gwen, prior to that, says, I've learned never to fear the truth. I thought it was a great moment there where she gives her team courage as they're walking forward into the unknown. I love how you play on the whole, this is evil because of the unknown aspect of what was out there and labeling it evil and kind of dealing with it from a logical sense as the crew kind of figured out what was going on. There's just so many things that I love about this episode. Obviously, the sprock and most illogical and all of those kinds of things just had me
so
rolling.
I think.
But this is top shelf, Aaron. You've proven yourself to be as good of writer as there ever has been in Star Trek lore, and I just wish you the most support and success. Keep this kind of stuff coming because it's. Live logs and proper.
Yeah.
You're going to make me cry again, Cirroc. It means a lot.
I'm telling you, this is good stuff, man. This is like classic material. This is like as good as it gets. I don't care if it's animated or it's. I just look at it as something that came from your mind, from your imagination, and. To me, the stories of Star Trek is what makes Star Trek. It's the stories that matter. And this was one of the great stories. I felt like I was on an adventure. I felt like a little kid as I was watching this episode, just, glued to my laptop. And really, once again, just the fact that those of us on the fringe, those people that feel like they're connected to Star Trek, but from watching it or from being around it, I feel like you included those people as you literally made them as part of the crew on the ship, on the Protostar.
That's what I loved about this episode, especially as a fan. We all want to get picked up by a spaceship and be part of a crew and fly fly a Starfleet ship. And then all of a sudden these aliens got to do it. And I love the whole moment when Janeway use the hologram system to make it old school Trek so they can control
beautiful touch. Beautiful touch.
So
I can't stop putting Enterprise bridges in my script. So
that's all right.
It's fine by me.
Don't.
Everyone's dream is to be picked up by the Enterprise. And
next on the list is the Defiant. I'm getting there. I'm working.
All right.
Hey. Keep it coming, man. This is good. I'm trying to master my my hand signature, for
live logs and props.
Oh yeah, it's
hard.
It's a nice little hand. Exercise.
You've got it mastered right there. That's hard. I got to put some brain power to that. But yes, just so creative, and then Murph, I'm like, what's about to happen with Murph? He looks like he's cocooning on me, and he's going to turn into something else. And I'm like, oh my God, and it left me on a cliffhanger with more, what else is going to happen? And that's another thing. We said it last week when we were talking with Kevin and Dan. We were saying how this is like movie quality stuff. And I don't think there's any really disagreement on that. This feels like a motion picture when you watch it. I really feel like I'm watching a high-end production. A very well thought out. it looks like you put 6 months into just this episode. You know,
you kind of did.
Yeah, I tend to go a little overboard on my episodes of putting in a lot of long hours. So, like, this is going to last forever, guys. It needs to be right.
So, yeah,
that's true.
Yeah, and I didn't find any flaws. I love the idea of the toxicity of the ship, of the original ship, kind of being the thing with the dilithium runoff and all of that. You know.
The Galileo.
Science that, yes.
Galileo. Now we know what happened to Galileo before it became Galileo 2 in the third season.
Actually, can I ask you about that, Aaron? Because there are plenty of gaps in my Star Trek knowledge. There seem to be much fewer gaps in your Star Trek knowledge. So Garrovick is a character that was in the one episode of Star Trek, the original series. As far as I know, no other episodes. Yes. And we don't know anything that happened to him beyond that. So at first I was trying to make the connection saying, I don't remember him going away or going on a planet or anything like that. But then I realized you basically just said, hey, remember that guy Garrovick? Ever wonder what happened to him? Ever wonder what happened to the Galileo? We're filling in the blanks. Is that kind of how it goes? Or was there something that hinted us in that direction that I missed?
Well, I mean, it's a bit of a meta hint, I suppose, but Garrovick has the unique distinction in the original series as being the only minor redshirt to ever survive an away mission. And so there was sort of this lingering question, like, well, then what happened to him? Why didn't he develop his relationship with Kirk? And then, it sort of got my wheels spinning about, like, what unseen missions were there on this 5-year mission that we only saw a few bits and pieces of. And so, I think part of the intrigue of this episode is we never quite give the full real story. Instead, we hear the copy of the copy of the copy of the story from the perspective of Ensign Garrovick. But the implication is there was some unseen incident where, for better or for worse, Garrovick became eventually, like Final Destination, met the fate of a red shirt, and the Enterprise kind of had to move on. And the implication, of course, is that maybe not all those red shirts did totally.
There's some survivors out there. Yeah.
Yes. And so I was always kind of curious, what was going on. I guess this was sort of my attempt to do a Lower Decks episode for TOS set in the 24th century.
So good.
I love the way they had his phaser and his original uniform in kind of, was it a frame kind of?
Yes. Great.
What a lovely touch. Just so many things. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Well,
and they reverse engineered so much.
We only have you for one more minute here, Aaron. So if you have any final thoughts or anything you'd like to just toss out to the fans, because the fans are going to be all over the place on you on Twitter. You're the best follow because you're always responding to people, even when they're nitpicking stuff. You're like, well, in my mind, I look at it this way, and they're like, oh yeah, you're right. I'm being a jerk. You're right.
The way I see it is, focusing on minutia is the Star Trek fans' love language, myself included. So it's your way. It's their way of saying, hey, I love and know a lot about this too. Let's talk about it. And so that's my favorite thing to do in the world, and I think we need Star Trek fans and people of all stripes and types and colors, because ultimately I feel like Starfleet, just like our, grand human experiment we have here, is only as good as its members. And I think that membership should include everyone. So I guess that's sort of my final thoughts about this episode and where we are in the world.
And you are extremely inclusive to the public. You've been extremely patient, inclusive, passionate, and friendly with everybody. And your patience knows no bounds. So as a fan, I just want to thank you for that. And thank you very much for taking that time today to join myself and Bonnie and Cirroc, Aaron. So everybody at home, we're going to take a super quick break. Bonnie's about to say something, but were you going to say?
I was like, if you want to meet Aaron in person in Indianapolis, you should go to Starbase Indy for Thanksgiving weekend. I will also be there randomly, but Aaron will be there. More importantly,
Aaron and Bonnie there on Starbase
We'll
Indie.
be talking.
Go check
We'll
that
be
out.
talking Prodigy for sure.
We're going to get some juicy nuggets out of there. So everybody stick around. We're going to take a break, and we're going to be right back on the 7th rule. Go tell Aaron what an amazing person you are, and how much you love this episode, because he is.
Thank you so much for having me.
Live logs and proper.
Live logs and proper.
Yeah.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the 7th rule with Cirroc, Lofton, and Bonnie Gordon.
And you.
And me, I'm Ryan T. Husk. You know what we're doing. This is Prodigy Season 1, which always trips me up because it feels like a second season, but it's Season 1, Episode 13, All the World's a Stage. That was Aaron WALTKE that just joined us, writer and co-producer. We love the guy. He's amazing. Let's talk more about this episode. There were just a few trivioids here because I was just so stuck on watching the episode. I couldn't really take very many notes. Jenkum Pog has a tickle in his throat. Starflight has finally arrived. Dal's skin is itchy, and Wood Leech's secretions reduce angiodemic immune response.
Say that 10 times fast.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't even say it one time fast.
Oh, such a good episode. First of all, 13 is my lucky number, so I feel like I was already like excited for this episode because I was like, okay, it's 13, my lucky number. Yeah. And you know what's really fun is that the computer doesn't have any lines on this one, and I didn't do scratch. I think I did scratch for like one scene at the very end, like in the very beginning, but I had no idea what this episode was going to be about. So this episode was new for me because I didn't get the script for this one in advance like I would do if I was in it. So I was just as excited for everyone to see like what is happening.
What's happening?
Yeah, what is happening? What's going to happen this week? I don't even know.
Now I have a question for you guys. Okay, so I want to play guess who the voices were. Was the voice of the guy who plays Shax on Lower Decks in this episode?
Yes.
Yes. And we actually should have talked about that earlier. You nailed it, Cirroc. Yes. Because
I was like, that's Shax. It's got to be Shax. It has to be Shax.
It was Fred Tatasciore. He did Dr. Boone's, right? That was Bones. He did Ensign Garovich, and he did Sprock.
And also shout out to Eric Bauza, who is already amazing. He was in the episode. Which one was it? It wasn't the last one. It was one before.
And then this one, he did Scotty, Sulu, and many of the Enterprisians.
Mm-hmm. He's fantastic. He's such a great voiceover actor, and I'm so glad they're using him for stuff because, like, wow, what a talent to bring on to the episodes. He's also just a genuinely nice guy. So I was excited to see his name.
We've seen, this is not the first example of crossover that we've seen now on the new shows, right? So this is Lower Decks, Shax on Prodigy. And I think we've seen something before. You said somebody's father was on.
Riley's dad.
Riley's father
is Buenamigo, right? Was it Buenamigo on Lower Decks? But yeah, you're right. I mean, that's a little different because neither one of them has crossed over in particular. It's a nice connection. But as far as I know, this might be the first crossover. Yeah. Until Bonnie goes on Lower Decks.
Yeah. Or, Picard or I guess not Picard because that one's.
Well, I want to see Bonnie play one of those evil computers on Lower Decks. You gotta be in the evil computer.
Now that Peanut Hamper is locked away and exactly. Badgie's making a comeback, I think it's time for a little, naughty computer to come.
Yeah.
Hello, and welcome to my world domination plan.
Naughty computer 17.
Naughty computer. Program 17904-2XY. I'm excited for that.
We need a crossover. If we're going to be crossing over, then let's get Bonnie to cross over.
Well, if I'm crossing over, my dream is to one day play a live action role on a Star Trek series, because especially if I want to fully follow in Mama Majel Barrett I call her Mama Bajou, Mama Majel. But in Majel Barrett's actual footsteps, I'd love to play a live action role as well. But
Speaking
I
of
mean, again,
Majel,
that's neither here or there.
She was actually Nurse Chapel in the
Yes.
original series episode that Ensign Garvik comes from.
Yes,
so that's
she
a
was.
fun little tidbit.
Wow.
But I felt like this was such a cool, like I said earlier, like it was like a love letter to the original series, you know?
I think that's what Aaron is really good at writing. I mean, look at the Kobayashi episode as well. I feel like Aaron really is like, oh, this is my time to show the Trekkies that we know what we're talking about in a way. Because I feel like kudos to the entire writing room. They're all so amazing. And I know Aaron did not, yes, it says written by Aaron Waltke, but I know the writer's room also had a lot of input in this episode as well. And it all comes from such a place of like love and respect for Star Trek. And I feel like episodes like this and Kobayashi, where Aaron takes the helm, really drives the point home of like, hey guys, the Prodigy team, they really want to make sure they're, giving Trek the respect that it deserves, and kind of also showing it like, hey, this can be enjoyable for all levels of Star Trek fans.
Mm-hmm. That's why I'm worried. That's what I'm saying. Like, I feel like the second fans know that there's an episode coming up by Aaron Waltke, I feel like he put the bar so high, right? That they're just all going to be like, they're just going to expect the world every single time. They're like, okay, when's the next Aaron Waltke episode? When's something's going to be crazy? And they're going to start guessing. It's going to be a Discovery crossover. It's going to be this. And by the way, it is raining like craziness outside in LA. We are not used to this. It's why out there.
You should have seen my hair earlier today because the humidity. It was. I was looking like. I mean, it was like Hermione Granger level of poof. It was huge. I have it. I have the headphones kind of keeping it at bay right now, but it was. I looked like a puffball.
Yeah,
I looked like a tribble. That's what it was. I was a tribble. My hair. I had a tribble on my head. There we go.
I think Aaron is. He is really just one of the best writers in this new generation of Star Trek writers.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And what a genuinely nice person, too.
He's genuinely nice. He really cares about the material. He's passionate about the love that he has for Star Trek. You can tell in the way he writes because it's so intricate in how it all fits together. The pieces are so intricate. Like, I had no idea about the backstory about Ensign Garvik. Yeah, I have no idea about that backstory.
He was only in one episode.
Yeah, I have no way to know that from watching this episode. I didn't know any of the real, like, where the Easter eggs were coming from. Mm-hmm. But I was watching it just from the perspective of, let's say, from Dal and Gwen and the whole, these little rascals that are trying to...
They wouldn't know either.
Right. The rascals. The rascals.
Yeah, these little rascals, right? That's got a protostar. But you know what I like about them is because they did start off with Dal saying, hey, we got a ship, we can still help others. Like we can't plug in with the Starfleet because we have a weapon on board that'll destroy it. So even though we can't do that, we can still go out here and do some good things for people, around the universe. And I thought that was a good intention about how they set out the journey just in the beginning.
What a cool twist now that Admiral Janeway and her crew think that the crew of the Protostar are the bad guys. Like what a cool twist is that? Because and now that they have the diviner in their possession as well, and he's just basically amplifying the fact that, they kidnapped my daughter, they did this and this, like in their mind, just from the tidbits of what he's saying, he's thinking that the people who have commandeered the Protostar are monsters. So I think that's such a fun twist to really play on that we're going to probably see in later episodes as things progress of like.
Yeah. Plus he mentioned having a memory of like Chakotay when they asked, do you know who this is?
He's been imprisoned. Is it? Yeah. Something like that he's been taken or something.
Yeah. They and then they went through these series of flashbacks inside of his head where it just lets you know, he has a whole like big part of this story that we haven't even touched on yet.
We need to unlock.
Big piece of the puzzle that we don't even know if we're ever going to, with his memory loss, who knows when that puzzle piece will be open. Does that make sense?
Yep. I open puzzle pieces all the time, you guys. Yes. But I think that's a really good point is we were so fixated on all the original series stuff and how fun and hilarious that was. But you're right. Like that was the darker side of things. That was the B plot that was the part of the overarching story for the entire season is what's going on there. And that's such a great twist because that just adds so much more depth to the entirety of the storyline for that arc, because now Janeway, real Janeway, is going to be
Admiral Janeway
is coming after them with added fervor, right? Like with added fervor and added fear and added suspicion and added complications, and it just makes it such a better story, I think.
I love the line that she says where this is no longer a rescue mission, this is a manhunt.
Yep.
Which I love. I love that line because it's like it basically just shows in her mind she's obviously thinking something horrible happened to Chakotay and his crew, and now whoever has the Protostar are running around the galaxy, destroying, space stations and causing havoc.
And can we just say on that point that Janeway must be the least prejudiced person I've ever seen, because any one of us on this planet or in this galaxy, if we saw the diviner, we'd be like, oh, that's a bad guy. That's a bad guy. I could tell from the way he talks.
I was actually slightly upset. I was like, come on. He looks like a bad guy.
He's a bad guy.
I know
he's wearing a shirt that says, I did it.
Guys,
Like, as Billie Eilish's Bad Guy starts playing in the background, it's like, I have a feeling #bad guy.
Oh no, our biggest fear happened. I was wondering which one of us would have our Wi-Fi busted because it is raining hard right now.
And we don't get weather in Los Angeles.
We don't know. LA needs just a giant umbrella because we can't hang.
I know. It's so like you always know if it's like if it's raining or if there's an earthquake, all of Los Angeles Twitter and Facebook and everything blows up because it's like it's raining. It does water from the sky. I come from Louisiana where it rains like every day, and so this is just gets
lucky.
Nice.
No, this rain just came down like a bucket right now.
Yeah, it was nuts. I'm like facing anyway. Nobody cares.
Sorry, everyone else is just like, wow. The people, this is sad though. Like how much we freak out about just a rain. It's not even like
in LA. They're like,
a storm. It's just
how was the review? Well, the first half was cool. They talked about Aaron WALTKE and Prodigy. The second half was raining.
Yeah, apparently there's weather in Los Angeles, which doesn't happen ever. So they had to talk about it.
You guys, you wouldn't believe what's going on here, everybody.
Usually we talk about traffic. Usually we talk about traffic, but today it's weather. Welcome to Los Angeles. We have rain here now.
Jacob also had a line that I really loved because when they thought that thing was evil out there, Jacob said, "'Cause it's evil, that's why. 'Cause it's evil."
Yeah. He has some of the best little one-liners.
Just one-liners.
So funny.
And I did want to reiterate what you were saying earlier, Bonnie, because we all had so many things we wanted to throw at Aaron at the same time. He was like a dartboard, and we were throwing compliments at him. But I did want to jump back onto something you mentioned in the first half, which was that really nice arc for Jankum Pog. Like it wasn't just, as Cirroc mentioned, he did so well as to stand up and became the engineer, or he faced his fears. But it was that much more powerful because throughout the entire episode, he was the guy saying, I'll stay home. I'm feeling a little
he didn't want to beam down. He didn't want to go
Yeah.
into the gallows. Yeah. He's like,
Constantly.
this is not for me. And then immediately he saw something that was like, I'm the only one here that can fix this. I think it was also much like, it wasn't, for him, I think he's a little bit more scared of the unknown. He was, beaming down to the planet. They couldn't get any readings. They had no idea what was going to happen. So it was like the unknown of beaming down and like that fear. And then the unknown of going to the gallows where there could be like a giant monster or like, he didn't know. But as soon as he realized what the problem was, and it was something that he was confident in and knowledgeable in, he goes, this is something I can do. And immediately his fear was gone, which I thought was just a really cool, moment for him. His fear obviously comes from something being unknown. Like he's scared of like the big bad, like the scary monster or this or that. But as soon as he's like, no, wait, this isn't something scary. This is something I know and I can fix. And I'm the only one that can.
Right.
And just like jumped in without any.
Plus he was dealing with the frustration of not being able to solve whatever the Protostar was on the Protostar, the weapon on the Protostar.
Exactly. Well, think back about the Borg episode. You know, there was no way he could fix that. He was looking for buttons, consoles, anything. So he couldn't hack or fix that issue. And then when it came time to try and disable the weapon, it shows him his frustration with that. So I think for this was kind of a nice little redemption for him, going, wait, this is something I know. I can fix this. I can make this work. And it kind of just made him, I think it gave him that confident boost that he needed, because he, you know, in his mind, he is the engineer of the crew. Yep. And the past few episodes, he hasn't been able to engineer. He hasn't been able to use his skills to fix the problem. And that's what engineers do. And this was the first time in a few episodes now that he was like, nope. This is actually something I can't do. And that was a nice.
Yeah. And I also really enjoyed the moment with Rock Talk, when Rock Talk was nursing Murphy back to Murph back to life, and they got Rock Talk got the distress call from everybody, and there was a moment where Rock Talk says, "Oh, my friends are sick, you know, like I gotta go take care of my other friends over here." And Murph, Janeway, you watch Murph, and I'm gonna, you know, go save the day with the special suits that they need. I just felt I felt that moment inside of Rock Talk, like really stepping up to the moment, like getting the distress call and saying, hey, my friends need me and I'm going to be there for my friends. And I just love that kind of fearlessness that Rock Talk approached the situation with.
It's all about
She's in
science.
High demand. She's in high demand.
She's smart as
job is never done.
Yeah. No, she's like, I mean, going back to episode, I think it was 7, the Time Amok episode, which is still one of my favorites of Prodigy, where they're all in different time waves, and it shows that she was alone for such a long time and like just studied and fixed everything. But it just shows that, like, I love how they kind of touch base on it on that episode, but now you're seeing, like, throughout the episodes how much knowledge she actually has, like when she was doing the math calculations of jumping from the station to the ship, or when she was looking through all the science stuff and solving problems. I feel like it's such a cool thing that they're dropping through to show, like, you know, she may be the youngest of all of them, but she's probably the smartest of them all too. But she has the biggest heart. She's like she has the best combo. Like she got the full power pack. Yeah.
She's very compassionate and thoughtful and caring.
Yeah.
A very, a nurturing character. Was George Takei also a guest voice in this episode? Because I could have swore it was his voice.
I don't think so.
Was it not?
No, that was Eric Bauza, I believe. I think that was Eric doing Sulu.
Yeah, they did Sulu.
Oh yeah, sorry, Sulu. My. I'm gonna after we get done recording this, I'm gonna write Eric and just be like, I'm just so happy you're on the show. You're so fun. What a fun, just everything. Oh, and shout out to I got my Protostar shirt in the mail.
Oh.
Excellent.
And shout out, I can't remember who it was who sent it to me. Gosh darn it.
But
they're going to hate me that I forgot. But thank you to that person. Sending my Protostar shirt. It's one of the it's one of our 7th Rule people.
And I'm so excited to see who what Murph is going to turn into. Like, I'm like, what is going to happen with that?
A game show host. I looked ahead. It's a game show host, but I'm not telling you what kind of game show.
Is that Murph Griffin? Griffin?
Murph, excellent.
Murph
Very good.
Trubeck. Yeah.
Very good.
Murph Trubeck.
We also touched on a little bit on in the first segment, but how funny was it when they were practicing the Kirk Fu, like, weird little cop?
Yes, the
Oh yeah!
Oh, I loved it.
The minute they started speaking, and just like, they have finally arrived, and it's like, oh my gosh, kids would find it just funny, just the way they were speaking,
they were
without
caricatures,
knowing.
Yeah.
Exactly. But anyone who knows anything about Star Trek, honestly, you don't even have to know anything about the original series to know that William Shatner as Captain Kirk, it is kind of like common nerd knowledge that he talks like this, so I feel like it's so great that Aaron added that into the episode, because it's just like, it's almost like it's a parody of itself, but and it's such a
totally
lighthearted, loving way.
But even kids
it's
will
really
enjoy
pouring.
It. Oh, so we know what part of the city she is. She's east of us because it's going eastward.
I'm in the valley.
But yeah, I mean, I think kids will enjoy it too, though, because it's still a funny way to talk. Even if kids don't have any knowledge of Star Trek, which I think you're alluding to, even if they've never seen it before, they're just going to laugh and they're going to think they're talking. Mommy, why are they talking so funny? Well, I'll tell you, there's this guy named William Shatner, and he is hilarious in the way he talks.
James T. Kirk.
There were great moments in this. I love the concept. I don't know. I felt like it was really telling so many stories at one time,
Rewatch this one. I feel I try and rewatch them regardless, but it was so.
Now she's getting your technical difficulties that you just had a few minutes ago, Cirroc.
I told you when that storm comes.
I was the one that escaped it.
Can you see me now?
Yeah, we can. Kind of.
I was saying I want to rewatch this one.
Yeah, this is worth a rewatch.
We need O'Brien to go work on the Protostar's computer right now. Yeah. Well, we do only have a couple minutes left.
I also love that old school bridge moment where it did go to the old school bridge, and everybody was like, "Yeah, this is something I can work with." It's a special moment for me.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful.
Yeah, and I really do think Aaron started a whole nother thing to do at conventions, which is like an entire different category for cosplay.
I'm already planning like together of improv actors and wear those outfits and put on an original series episode. Like, I'm already planning this in my brain.
That would be
and
brilliant.
So you've heard this here first. Next year, I'm gonna write the Star Trek conventions and be like, y'all, I have an idea.
Mm-hmm.
And the Star Trek play, I have to say it one more time. The Star Trek play reminded me of when I was in school and we used to do recitals. And I felt like I was watching one of those old school, like junior high school recitals. And it just brought back so many memories for me. It just made me feel like a kid again.
Did you do
the wooden sets moving?
Yeah, I did shows like that where you play like something in the background, the cloud or something.
You were a tree.
Like really, these cheap props and stuff, but these, but really ultimately about telling the story, whatever the story is. So I did get a very good feel for that. And, it's like, it was a very good homage to Star Trek and the influence that it's had on people. Even though this is a fictitious civilization, it's actually a reflection of us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's really cool. I had a freaking blast watching this episode, and it seems like you guys did too. So huge kudos to our good buddy, Mr. Aaron WALTKE, killing it. Really, and Prodigy as a whole, we're really loving it. What do you got for us, Bonnie?
It was Eric at Strange New Pod for the shirt. That's what I have to thank. Thank you, Eric. Sorry.
Thank you, Eric.
Oh, right.
It's the Protostar.
That's
finally
that's
I can
two
wear
Erics
myself
named in one episode.
Whoa.
New record. That's my brother's name, by the way. That's 3. Okay.
Wow.
Anyway, so we do have to run in just a second here, everybody. But again, let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and especially let Aaron and the good people at Prodigy, like the Prodigy Writers Room, let them know on Twitter or any kind of social media of your preference how you felt about this episode, because it deserves to be heard and they deserve to be told. But before we go, we want to give a very special thanks as well to a few people named, first of all, Eric, from Strange New Pod. And also Homer Frizzell, Dr. Anne-Marie Segal, Eve England out in Wales, Yvette Blackmon-Tom, Carmen, a.k.a. Skillet, Timothy Baum, TJ Jackson-Bey out in Missouri, Bill Victor Arukin. Ooh, that was breathy. Titus Muller, Darlena Marie, John Mann, Dr. Muhammad Noor, Tierney C. Diekman, Anna Post, Rex A. Wood, Anil O. Palat, Erica Strom, Joe Balsarati, Mike Gu, DQ, Neil Akasaka, Justine Norton-Kurtzen, Dr. Stephanie Baker, Carrie Schwent, Faith Howell, who's always floating out in Deep Space Nine somewhere, Edward Foltz, Radek Orszewski out in Southwest Poland, of course, Henry Unger, live from Tokyo, Matt Boardman, and of course, Dr. Susan V. Gruner. What a blast. Thanks, guys. It's been fun.
What a group of epic people.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you got it,
Live logs and proper.
Then you got to do the switch.
Live logs and proper. I can't really switch that easily. It's kind of difficult. I don't know. I'm going to have to work on that.
Yeah.
I think this is my new favorite thing to piss Trekkies off. Live logs and proper. They're like, wow. And I'm like, ugh.
And then the people that haven't seen Prodigy will be like, why does everybody keep saying that? It's so dumb. I don't even know what they're saying.
I don't understand.
It's Prosper, dummy.
I love the title of this episode too. All the World's a Stage. It's very fitting for this one.
True. Yeah.
I have a magnet that says, if all the world is staged, then men need better lines.
I need better lighting.
Whoa.
It's a funny magnet.
Well, everybody, thanks very much for
Sorry,
joining
guys,
us.
I love you.
Not at all. We always talk about lines on this episode, on this show. So anyway, we'll see you all very soon. And until next time, always remember the 7th rule.